Good morning to fans of the Los Angeles Lakers and only fans of the Los Angeles Lakers. Welcome to the Laker Central Podcast. I'm your host, Alex. Make sure you follow me on social media at LakerCentral365 and tell every Laker fan you know about this podcast. The Lakers are currently 26-7, best record in the West, and they don't play again until New Year's Day against the Suns. So considering that when you guys listen to this, it'll be New Year's Eve, I'm going to close out 2019 looking back at some of the craziest stuff that went down this year. And by the year, I specifically mean 2019, so I'm not actually talking about the 18-19 season, but specifically 2019 and some of the ups and downs that really had fans feeling like they were on a roller coaster. So what comes to mind first is missing the playoffs again, right? Missing the playoffs in LeBron's first season. Coming into that season, I don't think any rational fan or hater believed that LeBron wouldn't be able to get the Lakers back into the playoffs. He dragged Cleveland year after year, and even if it didn't result in a championship, they were always in the race. And things went to shit when he pulled his groin on Christmas Day in 2018. Now, the Lakers were in fourth place in the West, and they had just beaten Golden State by 26. And ultimately, LeBron would go on to miss some significant time. And, many people point out that the trade rumors surrounding the young players on the Lakers and Anthony Davis, that was the primary reason why the season went to shit. But the truth is, it was injury, and the stuff with Anthony Davis was more ancillary than a primary cause. And so that marked the sixth season that the Lakers had failed to miss the playoffs. 6 seasons in a row that they had failed to miss the playoffs. And I think it was just a major meltdown or letdown for myself and for all the other fans out there of the Los Angeles Lakers. Another thing that comes to mind is the failed Anthony Davis trade. It's no secret that Anthony Davis was considering leaving New Orleans. The team had only made the playoffs twice while he was there, and Davis in his time had racked up all NBA selections, had led the NBA in blocks like 3 times. He was a walking 20, 28, 10, one of the best defensive players in the NBA, and he was just entering his prime. And so, with the franchise really struggling, to have any postseason success, it's natural for him to have some questions around should he stay there. And when you think about the New Orleans Pelicans, if they felt that Davis was so important, that building a team around him was so important, then the team would have had their own medical staff. I mean, I don't think many people realize that they didn't get their own medical staff until David Griffin got there in 2019. But prior to that, the Pelicans used the New Orleans Saints medical staff. And, I mean, that's just ridiculous. Superstars, players in the NBA, they should have their own doctors, have their own medical staff. And so I think that really showed Anthony Davis, at least it showed me, that I don't know how invested Gail Benson or anybody else in that Pelicans front office was and making sure that Anthony Davis had everything that he needed to be successful. So I kind of just felt like that was just an easy way for them to further alienate a star by telling him, hey, your teammate's health isn't worth investing in. So when Rich Paul went public telling us that AD had informed the Pels that he would not re-sign, it sent shockwaves across the NBA, as it would when any superstar says, hey, I'm not going to stay with my team. The Celtics and Danny Ainge had lusted after star players the whole time that Ainge was in charge of Boston, and really I don't think he lusted over anybody more than Anthony Davis. Ainge really envisioned pairing Davis with Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum, but Anthony Davis wanted no parts of Boston, and nor did his father. They made it clear that if Boston traded for him, he was going to walk. And I think that they scared Boston a bit. And I think what it really came down to is that Davis wanted to be a Laker. But the Pelicans didn't want to give him what he wanted. And, here's what Brian Windhorst kind of had to say about what went down when the trade fell through.
But there was definitely actions taken by the Pelicans in this to, expose the Lakers a little bit. And I think the Lakers, frankly, were acting out of normal protocol as well, with trade offers being leaked as well. There was leaking going on both sides here, but there was not good faith negotiations going on necessarily. I think that's the best way to say it. I don't think the Pelicans actively wanted to hurt the Lakers locker room, but I do think they wanted to jab them with the stick, and I think that's what they did. And I think this is important to realize, because Laker fans are a little sensitive. Are there teams who dislike the Lakers and the way that they have done business and tampering and whatever? Yes, absolutely. Did the Spurs not really want to do business with the Lakers on Kawhi? Yes. Did the Pelicans not want to really do business with the Lakers on AD? Yes. But if the Lakers had better trade options, they would still do a deal.
Right.
Nobody dislikes the Lakers enough to not want to do business if they actually had the goods. And in all honesty, these are quality players, but they are not superstars in the making, like potentially they can get.
Franchise-changing players.
I think Windhorst was right in saying that the Pelicans weren't negotiating in good faith. I mean, there were leaks on both sides. It wasn't just Magic Johnson, but they were coming from everywhere. Woj, Shams, Brad Turner, they were giving us play-by-play negotiations, and that was bad for everybody involved. And if you sat back and looked at who was leaking or who was reporting what, it was really clear that Woj was the mouthpiece for the Pelicans and that Brad Turner was the mouthpiece for Magic Johnson. That's really what we saw there. And word was that Demps didn't want to deal with Pelinka because Pelinka, as a former agent, he repped Eric Gordon, and Eric Gordon, I think he wanted out of New Orleans, so there was some bad blood there. And so it was a mess. And so Demps would only deal with Magic Johnson. But what I think Windhorst and every other talking head got wrong, either by mistake or on purpose, is how they undervalued the Lakers' offer. Everyone kept saying the Celtics could add Jason Tatum. Well, if, I guess that didn't happen. And even with Tatum, I always thought that the Lakers had the better package. And Brandon Ingram is clearly proving that right now. So, what I'm going to do is take a quick break, and then I'm going to get into Luke Walton versus Magic Johnson. I'll be right back.
The Lakers need to have a coach that has a cohesion with the front office. And Jeannie Buss has made it very clear that she is going to let Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka make this final decision. So she's letting her basketball people make the basketball decision. Luke Walton and Magic Johnson have not spoken for weeks.
Welcome back to Lakers Central. I'm your host, Alex. And what you just heard right there was Ramona Shelburne talking about just more foolishness that was taking place when Magic and Luke were both with the Lakers franchise in an official capacity. And so, look, this was never going to work. I thought that it could. Jeannie loved Luke. I presume she still does. It's been widely reported that her time with Phil Jackson, that they looked at Luke kind of like a son. So, Luke, former Laker, you won 2 rings with Kobe Bryant. But clearly this was headed for disaster. Luke had his flaws as a coach. We all grew tired, I did, of his hockey substitutions and a lack of offensive system the whole time he was the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. But he was better suited to coach younger players, not, playoff-ready vets that were looking to try and compete for a championship. And when LeBron came in, expectations changed. And I think Magic made everything worse by consistently looking over Luke's shoulder and doing interviews and even the conversations between the two that leaked. I mean, the one that leaked to the media where apparently Magic had admonished Luke, and it was just like, stuff like that doesn't need to leak to the media, but I feel like that was coming from Magic's side. And the truth is, Magic didn't want Luke. That's the truth. He wanted his own guy. And who knows who that guy would have become or who that guy was in Magic's mind. But, Magic was just simply lighting a fire under Luke's ass, and it just made a tough situation tougher. And the Lakers and Luke eventually parted ways, and frankly, that was the best thing for both parties. And in the wake of Luke leaving, Luke left really several days after Magic had abruptly stepped down, and Magic stepping down, that was it was an epic disaster, but it was the right thing.
So today, I'm going to step down as a president. I had more fun when I was able to be the big brother and ambassador to everybody. You know, I thought about Dwayne Wade retiring tomorrow, and I can't even tweet it out or can't be there. I had more fun on the other side than on this side, because now, tomorrow, I would have to affect somebody's livelihood in their life. And I thought about that. I said, that's not fun for me. That's not who I am. And then I don't want to put her in the middle of us, you know, even though she said, hey, you do what you want to do. I know she has great love for him and great love for me, you know. And so I want to go back having fun. I want to go back being who I was before taking on this job.
And I remember it like it was yesterday. Magic quitting. I was traveling for work, and I turned on the TV in my hotel room, and Magic is giving an impromptu interview saying he's stepping down. I mean, I was shocked. It was crazy. I know many people disagreed with how he did it, but it damn sure needed to happen. And I don't think Jeannie had it in her to actually fire him. Magic had put together a roster that looked ridiculous, and he thought it could complement LeBron James, but frankly, it looked more like a 1980s roster. It was bad, which is why I always thought that it was ridiculous for him to blame Luke. Luke wasn't a great chef, but nobody can make turkey taste like bacon. I don't care what they say. The roster was bad, and Magic really had too many other business interests to actually be involved on a consistent basis with the team, and it was really just a terrible fit. I mean, you heard him say he wasn't having fun, and he wanted to return to the other side. You know, Magic was getting crushed by the fans and by the media, and that's something that he hadn't experienced since he was being called Tragic Johnson early in the 80s. You know, he's the greatest point guard of all time, and he's a black billionaire, and people love him, and they love all of his accomplishments. And, you know, he has a way of making you feel like, at least I've heard this, people who have spent time with him, you know, he has a way of making you feel like you're the only person in the room, even when you don't really, you know who he is as a celebrity, but you don't know him personally. When he talks to you, he just makes you like feel good. And he thought his charm and his candor would work in an NBA front office, and it didn't. People just want results, and Magic didn't give us any good results. Now, when Magic decided to go back on TV and basically ether Rob Pelinka.
And then I start hearing, you know, Magic, you're not working hard enough. Magic's not in the office. So people around the Laker office was telling me Rob was saying things. And
Rob Pelinka.
And I didn't like those things being said behind my back, that I wasn't in the office enough and so on and on. So I started getting calls from my friends outside of basketball saying those things now were said to them outside of basketball. Now, not just in the Laker office anymore. Now it's in the media and so on.
And these are people you trust.
Exactly. And people got to remember something. Being in this business for over 40 years, I got allies, I got friends everywhere, right? And then I had to monitor the brothers because Joey and Jesse wanted more involvement, wanted more power.
The Bus Brothers.
The Bus Brothers.
Right.
And so I said I didn't mind doing that because they're good guys, but also I sat them down and said, hey, listen, I'm going to really help you guys mature and get better. And so I took that role as well because they felt they should have been, you know, in powerful positions, whether that's the general manager or the president, right? And so then when those things start happening too much, Stephen A., the straw that broke the camel's back was I wanted to fire Luke Walton. And we had max 3 meetings. I showed her the things he did well and the things he didn't do well. And I said, listen, we got to get a better coach. I like him. He's great. Former Laker, the whole thing. So the first day, well, let's think about it. Second day, okay, you can fire him. Then the next day, no, we should try to work it out. So when we went back and forth like that, and then she brought Tim Harrison to the meeting, you know, some of the guys. And Tim, you know, wanted me
he wanted to keep him because he was friends with Luke. And Luke's a great guy, great guy.
He is.
And so when I looked up and said, wait a minute, I only really answer to Jeannie Buss. Now I got Tim involved. And I said, it's time for me to go.
Magic really did the Lakers a disservice by doing that particular interview. I mean, the impromptu interview, him stepping down at Staples Center right before a game, I mean, that was ridiculous. But this one he just basically threw gasoline on the fire. You know, he could have stepped down and rode into the $1 billion sunset, be Magic Johnson, but Magic Johnson likes to talk. And he felt like he needed to defend himself. So he basically contradicted some of the stuff that he said when he stepped down. When he stepped down, he said he had the full authority to do whatever he wanted. And I assumed that included firing Luke Walton. Then in this interview, he said he didn't because he wanted to fire Luke. He said that Jeannie got in the way of that. He said then COO Tim Harris got in the way. So it didn't sound like Magic had the authority that he thought he had, or maybe he did. When he also said, he might have to affect someone's livelihood, and that's not who he is. And I mean, when you own as many companies as Magic does, you hire and fire people, on a regular basis. So I don't buy that at all. But then he said Rob was talking about him not being in the office, and that was, backstabbing him. And man, look, most people don't want their bosses in the office in the first place. So I don't think Rob gave two shits about Magic actually being into the office. I think where the issue came in is that Magic will be away from the team for a week, 2 weeks at a time, sometimes longer, and then try to come in, walk in on a Monday morning, and try to tell everybody, well, here's what we need to do. Well, dude, you've been gone. And I think that had a lot to do with Joey and Jesse. So when he talked about, he had to kind of talk to them, like, one, they're 2 of the 6 owners of the team. The team is owned in a trust. Excuse me, it's more than 6 owners, but the team is owned in a trust, the Buss family trust, divided up amongst the 6 siblings, okay? Then there's that part. So they are they are 2 of the 6 siblings. There are a couple other billionaire owners that are minority owners of the team, but the Buss family in that trust owns the Lakers, owns the majority of the Lakers, and has controlling ownership in the team. Joey and Jesse, unlike Jim Buss, Joey and Jesse actually worked their way up and knew what they were doing. They still know what they're doing. They're really 2 good young executives. They're in their early 30s. And I think part of the issue is that even for those guys, they're owners of the team. Sure, their sister has control because she's the actual one with the decision-making power for the team. She's the governor, but they're owners also. And so when they're owners and Magic is put in charge of them, essentially, he's in charge of the front office, and he's coming and going as he pleases, and he's walking up in there and saying we need to do this or we shouldn't do that or giving his opinion. Now, he has a right to give his opinion, but when you're away from the team that much, it should be an informed opinion based on what the people who are there every day are telling you, what reports they're giving you. And I think that's probably part of the issue that those 2 guys had. And, they don't really speak a lot to the media, certainly about this kind of stuff. So we'll never know exactly what went on with that. But Magic came off really bad in this interview. And I think he did the Lakers a disservice. I mean, like I said, he was missing in action a lot. And ultimately, Magic had no business in that role. He had no business in that role. And all he did was add to the drama that is Hollywood and LA. So I'm going to take one last break and wrap up the podcast with really what was the high of all highs for Laker fans and the Lakers organization in 2019.
The Pelicans have agreed to finally trade Anthony Davis to the Lakers. Now, here's the compensation package. Everybody's wondering, what would they give up? Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram. Remember, Ingram has the blood clots in his arm, so that's an issue. Josh Hart, and 3 first-round picks, including the number 4 overall pick in the 2019 draft, which will air this Thursday on ESPN. That league sources tell ESPN. We've got the NBA's best insider with us. He's going to help break this down for us. It's Adrian Wojnarowski who joins us tonight here on SportsCenter. Woj, I just gave the details of the deal. This is Tony Collins and Zubin Mehenti. What else can you add?
Zubin, Tony, this is a monster haul for the New Orleans Pelicans to get 2 starters, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, an outstanding young player in Josh Hart, and 3 first-round picks, including the number 4 overall pick in Thursday's draft, which allows New Orleans not only to draft Zion Williamson at 1, but at number 4, get another, potential very good young player. But for the Lakers, they paid a steep price to get the player they had to get, Anthony Davis, now Davis, and LeBron James partner up in the West. Suddenly, the Lakers are a legitimate contender.
Welcome back to Lakers Central. Now, look, I've told this story a number of times now on the show, but I was at a lounge when this deal happened, when Anthony Davis was traded to the Lakers. I was at a lounge with my wife and my brother and sister-in-law, drinking mimosas, having brunch, chilling. I wasn't paying any attention to any of the flat screens that were all on the walls of this lounge, but then my wife taps my shoulder and she points up to the TV, and, I was floored that the Lakers got this done. And I got up and I started fist pumping, and I was extremely excited by the potential that Anthony Davis being a Laker meant. My sister-in-law asked, was AD this good? And I was just like, you really have no idea how good this dude is. He's a monster. And I was just as excited as every other Laker fan out there. And I immediately jumped up on Twitter to find out what Woj had to say, if it was real, and he confirmed it. And, what's funny about that Woj audio is that Woj starts out by saying the Pelicans got a monster haul. After he had bashed and, downplayed the Lakers' assets all spring and all summer, he reeked of bias. But even he couldn't bring himself to deny the fact that trade made the Lakers legitimate contenders. And of course, Shannon Sharp, noted LeBron James fan and Laker fan, was ecstatic about the trade.
Because Club Shay Shay is officially back open. We back in business now, Skip. I know you're disappointed about this. Lakers will win the title next year. Skip, I like the Lakers. I like the Lakers side of this because you understand what had to take place. Once the emotion was taken out of it, because David Griffin came in and he was not as emotionally invested, emotionally tied to this as Dale Demps and Miss Benson was previously.
That's true.
And I think one of the things that David Griffin conveyed to her is that, ma'am, we must take the best deal possible. Take the emotional side out of it. And if this presents us the best deal, in order for us to build a championship, then I think we should take it.
Shannon Sharp was basically every Laker fan when this trade went down. And he was right. David Griffin came in, it wasn't emotionally invested in all the foolishness that Demps and Loomis and others were invested in. He took the best deal. And that should have been what the goal was from the jump. But here we are now. The Lakers have Anthony Davis in hand. We've got the best record in the Western Conference. And the crazy part is the Lakers can still get better. And that should scare everybody. So I'll wrap up by saying being a Lakers fan is a huge part of my life, and I can't imagine cheering for any other franchise. We have way more highs than lows, and now the franchise is back on a high after a nice drought. So I want to say thank you to all my fans. It's been real fun in 2019, and in 2020, I can see us winning another championship. Be safe on this New Year's Eve, folks. Until next time, I'm out.